Some students get straight A's, and somehow they're not constantly stressed. They're not staying up every night. They're not always rushing. They're not living in a state of quiet panic. And what's interesting is, they don't look smarter. They don't talk about motivation. They don't seem like they're trying to optimize anything. They're just calm. Meanwhile, other students, equally capable, equally intelligent, feel like they're always behind, always pushing, always forcing themselves to care. So here's the uncomfortable question. What if the difference isn't discipline, or effort, or even intelligence? What if some students feel calmer because the way they think about studying creates less friction in their mind? And without realizing it, what if you've been making this harder than it needs to be? If you watch these students closely, the difference shows up before the exam, not after the grades come back. In the days leading up to a test, they're not constantly checking the time. They're not talking about how little they've slept. They're not making dramatic promises to lock in at the last minute. They don't rush between tasks like everything is about to collapse. When deadlines get closer, they don't suddenly try to manufacture motivation. They don't rely on panic to wake them up. In fact, they often seem quieter. Their studying doesn't look intense from the outside. It looks steady, almost boring, and while everyone else feels the pressure rising, they feel oddly grounded, not confident in a loud way, not relaxed because they don't care, but calm in a way that makes you wonder, how are they not spiraling like everyone else? This isn't advice. There's nothing here to copy yet. It's just a pattern. And once you notice it, you start to realize you've either seen this kind of student before, or part of you really wants to understand how they got there. Most students don't think they're doing anything wrong. They genuinely believe the solution is simple. Try harder. Be more disciplined. Push through the stress. Tell yourself this pressure is normal, even necessary. And on the surface, that belief makes sense. After all, effort feels productive. Stress feels like proof that you care, and exhaustion can almost feel earned. So when studying feels heavy, the instinct is to add more force, more hours, more urgency, more self-pressure. But here's what quietly happens when you live in that mode. Your mind never fully rests. Even when you're not studying, part of you is still worrying, replaying what you haven't done, thinking about what's coming next. Your attention gets fractured, not because you're lazy, but because your brain is juggling too many open loops at once. And over time, something subtle sets in. Studying starts to feel like resistance. Motivation becomes something you have to manufacture. Burnout isn't an accident, it's a cycle. The uncomfortable truth is this. Stress isn't evidence that you're working hard. It's evidence that your system is creating friction. The effort was never the real problem. The way that effort was being forced was. Here's the shift that changes everything. Imagine your mind as a desk, not a big one, not an infinite one, just a normal desk with limited space. Whatever is on that desk is what you can think about clearly. Now, studying isn't the only thing that ends up there. There are reminders you haven't written down, deadlines you're tracking in your head, guilt about what you didn't do yesterday, anxiety about what's coming next. Each one takes up a little space. And stress doesn't sit neatly on the desk. It spreads. It covers the surface with noise. It piles things on top of each other. It makes simple tasks harder to see, harder to start, harder to finish. This is what most students don't realize. Cognitive bandwidth is finite. You don't run out of intelligence. You don't run out of potential. You run out of clarity. Two students can have the same brain, the same hours in the day, the same goals, but completely different mental loads. One is trying to study while also remembering everything, deciding everything, and worrying about everything. The other has a clearer desk, not because they care less, not because they're gifted, but because fewer things are competing for their attention. This is why calm students perform better, not because they're working harder, but because their brain is working with less friction. Once you see the desk clearly, the behavior of high-performing students starts to make sense. They're not constantly asking themselves, "Do I feel motivated enough to study right now?" They're not negotiating with their energy every day. Instead, they remove the question entirely. They study at roughly the same time, in roughly the same place, with roughly the same setup. Not because they're rigid, but because predictability creates calm. Fewer choices means less mental noise. They don't rely on memory to hold everything together. They don't keep deadlines floating in their head. They don't trust future motivation to save them. They move things out of their mind and into simple external systems: a written plan, a visible list, a clear stopping point. Nothing fancy, nothing perfect. Just enough structure that their brain doesn't have to stay alert all the time. This is the part most people misunderstand. Discipline isn't what protects focus. Design does. When your system is clear, your mind doesn't need to push as hard. And that's why studying feels lighter for them. Not because they're stronger, but because they're carrying less. Systems protect focus. Willpower burns it. So before thinking about changing anything, just notice. Where in your studying are you relying on pressure to function? Where does stress act like the engine? The thing that finally forces you to move. Now ask yourself something simpler. What are you still carrying in your head that doesn't need to be there? Deadlines you keep mentally checking. Tasks you keep redeciding. Plans you never fully write down. And then this one. What decision do you repeat every day that could have been decided once? When to study? Where to study? What done actually means? You don't need answers right now. This isn't about fixing everything. It's about seeing where your attention is leaking. Because the moment you notice that, you stop blaming yourself. You stop calling it laziness. You stop assuming something is wrong with you. You start seeing the friction. And that awareness alone already creates a little more space. If you've been struggling with studying, it's probably not because you're lazy. And it's probably not because you lack discipline. More often than not, it's because your mind has been carrying too much for too long. Too many decisions, too many open loops, too much pressure acting as a substitute for clarity. The students who get straight A's without stressing aren't built differently. They've just learned, often without realizing it, how to protect their attention. So don't think about overhauling your life. Just start smaller. Remove one decision you keep repeating. Write down one thing you've been holding in your head. Clear one mental loop, and let it live outside your mind. That's enough for today, because you don't need more discipline. You need fewer things competing for your attention. And if this helped you see your studying differently, take a second and like the video. It tells YouTube this kind of calm, practical content matters. If you've ever felt stuck in the pressure loop, comment one thing you're going to move out of your head this week. Just one. Simple. And if you want more videos like this, quietly breaking down focus, discipline, and the psychology behind real change, subscribe to Lock Theory. I'll see you in the next one. Until then, lock in, level up, think deeper.